Welcome back, everybody, to day 3 of EA Global Summit virtual conference connecting global EA practitioners. This is Juhi from Summit team. We have been seeing a fabulous response for this conference from EA community. We are having exciting and informative sessions coming up from speakers for the next 2 days too. We have sophisticated collaboration platform to give you all the best experience of attending this conference. For this session, we have Gareth, consultant from Spark Services UK, presenting here graphical user interface simulation using State Machine. Just to bring your attention once again, we also have the Teams channel ready and set up for you to connect and interact with Gareth and other practitioners after the session and throughout the summit too. Please refer to the chat window to find the link. Please log your questions for this session to Teams channel shared in your chat window. Gareth will be answering few questions in the Q&A session at the end, but you can continue a detailed discussion after this session in Teams channel with Gareth and other practitioners. Now over to you, Gareth. You can now present your session. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Juhi. Thank you for the introduction as well. I think I shall start by echoing the sentiment of everyone else who's presented and thanking Nizam and his team for organizing this global event. There's been a whole load of very interesting speakers, and we should probably thank them as well. Lots of a variety of interesting topics. Hopefully this will be another interesting topic for some of you. I should probably start with a little background to introduce myself, because most of you probably don't know me. As I have been introduced already, my name is Gareth Tuckwell. I work with Gillian Adams here at Hippo Software. Gillian did a talk yesterday, a very clear and concise talk on Archimate. I'll do my best to match that level of professionalism, but we'll see. I can only do my best. So yeah, we both work together at Hippo Software, based in Scotland here. We are Spark Services UK. I would like to say it's sunny and warm, like everyone else has announced, but unfortunately today it's just a bit sort of grey. That aside, we deliver training and consulting all over the UK, sometimes in Europe, occasionally further afield. And Gillian and I, she's probably listening, she's probably just as surprised as I am. I sat and worked it out. We've worked together for 20 years now, 20 plus years actually. We've been doing face-to-face training for lots of that time, a good 15 plus years of that time. We've also been doing web-based training for a good 2 or 3 years now. So this COVID crisis hasn't really affected us in the way we work, other than a lot of the business suddenly disappeared and the companies no longer need us to travel anywhere. So we've started advertising lots of public training. And obviously this global webinar is a nice way of reaching everybody, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not very good with a sales hat, so I'll just throw that away. I want to do this technical demo for you all. So we've been using Sparks on projects for consulting and training for, like I say, something like 15 years now. Everyone's coming on and telling you which version they first used, and I honestly can't remember. But I know it was one of the early ones, back in 2000 and something. I had to write some software to integrate a different tool into EA. So obviously you'll gather from that that I'm a software engineer under the skin, under the surface. I haven't written much code now for years, apart from the odd script in EA. We do a lot of scripting for clients in EA. The main interest for me when I was a developer was interface design, in particular making interfaces as intuitive as possible, and the ability to knock up a prototype and let users play with an interface still interests me. Analyzing how they respond to it, how they interact with it. If you see a mouse flicking around all over the screen, it's because somebody doesn't know how to do something, it's therefore not intuitive. So that kind of underlying interest has driven me to do this talk today, GUI design and simulation in EA. So the first thing I feel like saying is I need to apologize, I don't have a webcam. I can only share my screen and talk at you. I know a lot of the other presenters have had webcams, but trust me, that's probably a good thing just now. If you combine the global quarantine and the working from home and my, let's say, propensity towards biscuits, you get a not pretty sight these days, despite the beautiful nightie I'm wearing, which of course is the benefit of working from home. Comfortable clothes. I think I may have digressed slightly. Right, what are we doing? What is GUI prototyping? So I want to take you through one particular technical aspect of EA. Obviously designing an interface and then executing it so that a user can interact with it and get an idea of the interaction style. I don't need to explain what a prototype is generally, but the exact nature of a GUI prototype and the reason behind creating one is worth having a look at for a few minutes or talk about for a few moments. A GUI prototype in EA is quite simply a diagram. It's a diagram that demonstrates what an interface might look like. We can put buttons and drop-down lists and things on the screen. You might do this for some visionary sketches for a new website, or perhaps some screens for a mobile phone, or what I'm going to do here, which is some dialog boxes for a Windows application. So clearly it's a fairly technical presentation, so just before 50% of you run away, what I would like to say is I've tried to tailor things and find a decent balance between getting too technical too quickly and therefore losing the beginners out there, trying to find a balance between that and still keeping the interest of the experts out there, which, as Ian mentioned yesterday, I don't claim to be an expert. There are some areas of EA I know pretty well, and I've been using it for a very long time, but I don't know if expert's the fair term. Anyway, I'm going to try and please all the people for the whole time, which actually reminds me of a proverb I heard once, so I'm sure this will go just fine. You see, without the microphone, I'm sorry, with a microphone and no speakers, no camera, you can't see me stopping for a drink, so bear with me a sec. That's better. Right, let me talk about requirements for a moment, because I don't intend to do much on requirements in this presentation. There are various reasons why you'll do a GUI prototype or some kind of screen design. It may be you try to test that an interface is going to satisfy all the needs of a set of requirements. Also, getting users to click on buttons and actually emulate an interaction with an application. We can perhaps confirm the order things need to happen, so detail out some of the requirements we've already got. We might use the interface to help discover or allow the users to use the interface, which will help us discover additional features that are required. We can check that the functionality path, so if we're doing scenarios and use cases, we can check the scenarios are complete. Have we considered any alternate scenarios, any going wrong paths that we need to deal with? So like I say, I'm not going to go in and create requirements or anything like that in EA, but I just wanted to mention that's why we're doing this. We're doing a GUI prototype to prove or confirm the requirements. I also would like to mention, but I'm not going to demonstrate this, traceability between the GUI design that we create and the requirements behind the scenes. I'm only mentioning it now because traceability is such an important aspect of modeling and a function that EA supports in so many different forms. You can create diagrams and connect boxes together. So I can have diagrams that show realized connections between requirements and certain dialog boxes or areas of a screen or whatever. And realize is the relationship I would recommend for this kind of traceability. Because we've got relationships in there, we could use the relationship matrix to cross-reference requirements and GUI elements. We can use the traceability window in EA. If you pick a requirement in the project browser, open up the traceability window, you can see all the things it's connected to. The requirement will be connected to other requirements and use cases and perhaps activity steps in the process, and why not connect it to the GUI design elements as well. You could even get EA to build a diagram for you automatically. Create a blank diagram, drag a requirement on, use the insert related function, and EA can populate a diagram, and it will pull all the GUI elements on. You can see what's connected to what. But I'm not going to say any more about requirements, just pointing out that a GUI design sits alongside the requirements, helps to confirm them, helps to elaborate on them, and so on. What I do want to talk about is the different interface styles or the interface toolboxes that are available to us in EA. If I just go here, if I just open the new diagram dialog box, as you know in EA, there are, I don't know how many, dozens, at least dozens of different diagram types available. They're all organized into categories. When you go to create a new diagram, you've got to choose the one you want. And there's rather an extensive list on here. There are other extensive lists in EA and other places too. So that's why they came up with, they being Sparks, came up with perspectives. So if I restrict the perspective in here to just UX, user interface stuff, there we go, that cuts down the list to a much more manageable size. I had a quick count this morning, there's 10 different diagram types scattered amongst these things here. You've got the original EA core extension user interface diagram types. I've not used that for ages, to be fair. Wireframing is fairly popular, I believe. Wireframing is just a black and white diagram, almost like a hand-drawn sketch. So you can do Apple, iPhone, iPads, all this kind of stuff, designs, Android stuff, Windows Phone, if anyone's still using that. There is the IFML. This is a new standard from the OMGs, not a few years now, but I haven't actually seen it used anywhere. Interaction Flow Modeling Language. Don't ask me questions about that. The best thing I can do is give you a link to the OMG website. You can ask me questions if you like, but that will be the answer. And then we've got the old cut down simple user interface, and then this one, which is the one I'm going to use in my demo today. So a Win32 interface is a Windows interface. Anything you do in Windows on a bit of software is made up of dialog boxes, windows. There are drop-down lists of things like that. There are bits where you can type in text. In fact, let's do that right now. Bits where you can type in text. There are tree type things and list things. There's all sorts of controls, and that's what we're going to use. So I'll actually create this right now. Get straight into the demo. No, I won't. I'll put it down there and give you a background first. Yes, I have got notes in front of me. I'm not exactly making this up as I go along, honest. So the presentation itself, there's going to be three sort of main parts. There's obviously the introduction, then three main parts to the presentation. I want to first of all create a GUI design, a dialog box on a diagram. That's what this is going to be in a minute. So I'll create a GUI design using this Win32 toolbox. So I'll talk you through the toolbox briefly. Once we've got the actual interface down, I'm then going to go off and do a state machine model to explore all the states, basically, that the interface can be in. It can be in a busy state or busy doing something, or you're pressing a button, it's responding to it, the various states it can pass through. Then it gets technical. That's where you have to fasten your seatbelts, perhaps. The last bit, we're connecting it all together. I'm going to add some little snippets of code behind the scenes on the buttons in the GUI interface. And they will send information through to the state machine. I'm then going to add some code into the state machine that will cause changes back in the GUI screen in the design. And the whole thing, as in the GUI design, the interface, will pop up on the screen, and it will allow an interactive demonstration of the interface. We're not just clicking on boxes on a diagram in EA. The dialog box is actually going to come up looking like this, like an actual dialog box. Final point to mention, actually, on that topic of having a dialog box on the screen that you can interact with. If you present this to a user, so we're going to end up with some dialog boxes. You'll see it working in, a few minutes' time, half an hour or so. If you present this to a user and show them a set of dialog boxes that they can click on and type things in, and magically it just seems to work, they will probably quite rightly assume the working system is not far away. So if you are ever going to do this and show this to a client to confirm your requirements and so on, then you might want to make sure you explain to them this is not the working system. This is just a set of pretty pictures that have been magically joined together to make it look like it's working. It's all sort of smoke and mirrors. So you have to manage expectations a little bit, potentially, there. So let's go off and create an interface for the calculator. So this is the imaginary project I'm going to use here. So you have to imagine, but like I say, I'm not going to bother modeling requirements. I mean, requirements and the traceability, you're looking at a half-day webinar on its own there, so I'm not going to do that. But imagine we've set up, or we've discovered a set of requirements from the stakeholders about the functionality and performance for a calculator. The requirements we've gathered seem to suggest a relatively simple system, so this should be nice and quick and easy, but the requirements have only been detailed out to a sort of initial level, and we're actually struggling to get a bit of clarity from the customer on what exactly is required. They don't seem to be sure of what they want. Obviously, this is entirely hypothetical. I'm sure nobody is out there has ever worked on a project where the user wasn't 100% clear on exactly what they wanted and the requirements just flowed naturally. And that was sarcasm, by the way, in case you thought I was being serious.
Hello.
not.
Hi, Garrett. It seems
Hi,
that audio was down for a while, for last 30 seconds. Can you just come up again?
yes, of course. Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Yes, it is fine now. Yeah, please continue. Thank you.
Interestingly, I didn't press anything. It just decided.
Not a problem. It might be a technical glitch. Please continue. Thank you. Hello. Maybe Garrett, I think the voice is down. Let me check.
Okay.
Yes, Suresh. It is not audible.
Fine now, Garrett. I think, can you just come up again? I can hear you.
Testing
Please
1,
go
2,
ahead.
3. Don't you just love
You're audible.
technology?
You're audible now. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. It did pop up in the corner of the screen telling me that nobody could hear me, but I don't know why. Right, I shall carry on talking in that case. I didn't press anything here, so there's some sort of gremlins floating around in the air today. I don't know what it is. So in summary, I was talking about users not necessarily knowing exactly what they want from a system, and therefore we're finding it hard to finalize requirements. So we're going to do a GUI design to let them see what things might look like. So they can explore and demonstrate with this mock front end. They can see what things might look like, and hopefully we can all build on these sketchy requirements and help everyone understand what functions, perhaps what order things need to happen in the interface. The goal, obviously, is to give us some confidence in the requirements. We want to confirm the ones we've got are correct, maybe flesh out some scenarios for the use cases, perhaps discover some new requirements we hadn't thought of, and just generally improve everyone's confidence, the team, the development team, and the user's confidence in those requirements, which will allow us to progress to the full design, safe in the knowledge we've got, we're heading on the right track for this particular system. So that's what we're doing, a calculator. The user doesn't know exactly what they want, so we're going to throw some screens together, get it to appear on the actual screen so they can interact with it, and hopefully that'll help them figure out what exactly they want. So back to here, I'm creating a diagram in EA. I'm not going to talk through how to create a diagram. I'm typing in a name, choosing the type, off we go, there's a diagram. I have prepared a very pretty header, which I'm just going to copy from here and paste onto this diagram to make it look like I'm all very professional and I know what I'm doing. There we are. So let me talk through the toolbox just briefly. I'm not going to explain all of these things. In fact, I was playing around in EA trying to find a decent dialog box. I thought this one was quite good. This is the preferences dialog box in EA. If you look down the toolbox in EA for this particular type of diagram, Win32, a Windows diagram, we can create, the very top thing is a dialog. That's the outer container on here. This whole thing is a dialog. On this dialog, you can see there's a couple of buttons at the bottom, and there's a button on the toolbox. I've got checkbox available on the toolbox, and look, there's some checkboxes in here. Oops, a daisy. That's fine because it didn't actually do anything. We've got some text fields I can type into, so this is something I could type things into. That's a bit of static text on the dialog box. There's a boundary box in the background. All of these things are available in the toolbox. The left-hand side of this window, you can expand and contract things. That's a tree. Look, tree control down here. We could put scroll bars on. Static text is the labels. Edit control is this, the edit control. I'm deliberately not actually changing anything in here. So all the stuff that you can use in Windows is available on this toolbox. We don't need a great deal of it for a calculator. Calculator is relatively simple. I need some kind of outer box to put it all in. So I shall create a dialog box and I shall call this my calculator screen. I've even managed to spell it correctly. I'll make it slightly bigger. I'm used to a much bigger screen. I've changed the resolution down for this presentation. It's all a bit squished for me. Right, so we've created that. I need to put some buttons in here. Now let's put a text across the top. So it's a calculator. You need a white bit across the top, edit control. You need a white box across the top. This is going to be the display. So let's call it the number display. There we go. So that sits across the top of the calculator. And then I need a series of buttons underneath so that you can interact with the calculator. There'll be a whole row of, well, the calculator buttons tend to be square, don't they? So there'll be a whole load of buttons. So if I work up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this will be button 7. So there'll be a 7. Bear with me, you'll see what I'm doing in a second. This will be button 8. Why can't I type in an 8? Select it and type in 8. Thank you very much. I want a number 9 over here. I could select all of these, control and drag to duplicate them. There we go. And then this one will be 4, this one will be 5, this one will be 6. This won't take too long, don't worry. I'm not going to spend all day creating buttons in front of you. And so on. So this will be 1, 2, 3. I'll need a 0 underneath. I'm going too fast for it. There we are. I'll need a 0 underneath. I'll probably need an equals button. Let's put another one on there. Now, I can't use the actual, I'd like to just put that, have an equal sign, but I can't do that because behind the scenes there's technical reasons. So I'll put the word equal. There's my equals button on there. And I'll need a button for doing the basic maths functions like plus or clause, apparently. Plus. I want a plus button. I want a minus button. See, typing was not promised as part of this demonstration. There we are. Plus, minus, and so on. Now, for the people in the UK, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say Blue Peter. For those of you that aren't in the UK or have never seen it, there used to be a TV program for kids called Blue Peter, and they would do little demonstrations of how to make things, and they would always get halfway through it and put it to one side and then say, here's one I made earlier. So this is the Blue Peter presentation that we're doing here. I've got several stages, you can see in the project browser here, I've got several stages I've saved, just to save me a lot of typing, because right now I would start resizing this stuff, lining things up. In fact, I would probably advise you're doing a GUI design, go into the layout ribbon, turn off the grid, and then you can line things up to the nearest pixel. You can select something on the screen on the keyboard, shift and the arrow keys to move it around 1 pixel at a time. I've actually ended up with this quite well lined up, but I could select all of that lot and align the tops, and then maybe select all these things and align the lefts. And all this kind of, you can spend ages lining this all up. I'm not going to bore you by making you sit and watch me do that, so I shall close this one. Do I want to save the changes? Yes, because it's beautiful. And I shall jump forward in time, and you can pretend that I've just created all of that stuff. So this is the stuff I've just been creating, just it's tidier, and it almost lines up, but the equal doesn't line up with the 3. I told you I liked interface design, that's terrible. So there's my GUI design. That's what it looks like. For some projects, that might be enough. You create the GUI design, you show it to people, they look at the screen and say, oh, that's awful. I don't want that. I want something else at the top here. I need a space for some kind of solar panel at the top. I need other buttons. These need to be red, and all sorts of things. It may be just looking at the interface is enough, but it's not enough for us. We need to do a bit more. So what we want to do now is stage 2. We have, if I just flip back to here for a second, GUI design. We've done that. I'm now going to go off and create a state machine model to go with the GUI design, and then I'll connect it all together. So there's my calculator. I need to create a state model for it. A state model is a standard UML diagram. And if I just put my perspective back to normal, I'll be able to go to, there we are, state machines. I'm just putting it all on one diagram. There's only 2 boxes, that big thing and another one. So I'll stick it all in one place for now. I will stick a state machine on here for the whoops, I've still got my caps on. Calculator states. Beautiful, there we are. So that's the state machine element. If I double click on this, I can go into the actual state machine diagram where I will need a beautiful heading. I shall copy that right now, go down into this diagram. I think I'll turn the frame off actually just to make it a bit prettier. Paste that in. That's a deep paste I'm doing. This isn't obviously the GUI design, this is the states. There we are, calculator states. So down here, we're going to do a state model. A state model is a UML diagram that lets you explore all the actual states that a system can be in through its entire life cycle. So in terms of the calculator, there's an initial state. So we start, that's the marker that starts the whole diagram. And that will be the marker that ends the whole diagram. So that doesn't really do anything. It's just a blob on the diagram that tells us where to start. The calculator will be a software thing, a hardware thing, not quite sure. It's only an example, but I'll probably need to do some kind of initializing. When you switch the calculator on, it probably has to do a little internal test and who knows what, but I'll create a state for it. So when you first switch the thing on, it goes into its initializing state. Lovely. Once we've finished with initializing, oh, let's put a transition in. So that's how you connect things together, transition lines in state. So we start by doing some initializing. Once we've finished initializing, the calculator will be sitting there waiting for the user to type numbers in. So initially we are entering the first number, or entering number 1. That would be sure, that'll do. Entering first number. Once we've finished entering the first number, we need to enter the second number, don't we? So we'll enter the first number. I'm just copying that state, and I'm going to change the text to save me a bit of typing. Enter the second number. Transitions, initializing, enter the first number, enter the second number. Once we've entered the second number, we need to come down another transition line to create a state for the calculation. So calculating. We'll do some calculating for a while. When we're finished calculating, we need to display the answer. Display answer. There we are. And we need to connect all this together. So that goes to there. After we've displayed the answer, let's just say we close transition. There we go. So the calculator switches off. That's a bit rubbish, a bit dumb, isn't it? So rather than just switching, I mean, we need to hit this close at some point. So I had to connect it in somewhere. And it seemed to make sense to close after we've displayed the answer. I'm picturing the calculator. I know I haven't included one in the design, but I'm picturing some kind of on-off button. So we have to kind of use our imagination slightly in here. If I press the close, in fact, I've included a close button on here. There we go. So there is a close button. Don't know quite how you turn it on, but let's not worry about that. There's a close button. So the close button takes us to the end. So we do that after display the answer. But actually, after we've displayed an answer, we might want to do another calculation. We might want to go back up here and enter the first number again. So that doesn't suddenly tie up. I've got a state that goes 2 different places at once. You can't have that. So I need to put some more information onto this diagram. I need to start adding transitions, that's the lines, and putting triggers onto these transitions. I need to say what causes us to go along these transition lines. The first bit is automatic. You switch the thing on, does some initializing, and then it goes to entering the first number. That's fine. After we've entered the first number, something needs to happen to take the calculator from that state into its second number. And we need to put a transition in here. We need to say that someone is pressing a function button. If someone presses a function, so this is the add or times or whatever, that takes us to the second number. Then when they finish with the second number, they will press they'll press equals. They'll do some calculating, it will go to display answer. And then if they want to, they could actually press a number. The answer's on the screen. If you start pressing a number, it goes to entering that first number again and goes round and round and round until they choose to press the close button. So you press close, and that will take us out here. That now holds together. That works quite well. I could actually, calculating and displaying, you could argue that that's just one state, really. Displaying the answer involves a calculation, but it's going to be so fast, it doesn't seem worth making a state for it. So I'll actually I will evolve the solution. Let's get rid of that box. Don't want calculating, make it go away. Yes, please. There we are. So we can just go round and round. We switch the thing on, enter the first number, press a function, second number, press equals, put another number in, round and round and round until we press close. But of course, you could press close halfway through this. You could be halfway through your calculation and decide, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm doing 12 plus 3. So I type in 12 and I realize, oh, it's 15. I don't need to use the calculator anymore, so I press close. But I'm not going to be able to press close until I've finished. That's not very good. So let's put a super state in here called operating. If I just right click on this and make sure it's behind everything else, send to bottom, put it behind everything else, I can put it up here, I can make it a bit bigger. I can say that we switch things on, we do initializing, and then we go into operating. And inside operating, we're entering numbers and doing calculations and so on. And at any point during the operating, I could close. So that now allows me to press close at any point through here. Now these triggers that I've typed in here, I just typed stuff in the properties window. When I created these things, if I just highlight the diagram, there's the diagram in the project browser, these triggers have been created as elements, and I'm going to use these later on. So I need to tidy things up. I want to put these into a folder. So I will create a package for my signals and triggers. So there will be a second type of element we haven't discovered yet. Signals and triggers, create a package for them, pick them all up, and put them tidily in that package. So the area that I'm working on, that's the overall diagram, the calculator diagram. That is the dialog box for this thing. That is the state machine, and that's the package where all the signals and triggers live. All neat and tidy. Right, just to make sure I haven't missed any typos, I'm going to switch to my next pre-prepared version. I'll just close these screens down to avoid my own confusion. Go in here. It'll all look exactly the same to you guys, but I'll probably notice a little difference. I'll have typed something wrong. In fact, I evolved the state machine a bit more. I realized that as we are entering the first number on the calculator, that actually takes a little while, and you need to do a little bit of maths behind the scenes that I'll come to later on. You imagine using a calculator. We want to do, let's say, 257 plus 3. I know you can all do that in your head. Well, I hope you can all do that in your heads. But on the calculator, you would type 2, and then the 2 would appear on the screen. And then you would press a 5, and 25 would appear on the screen. Then you would press a 7, and 257 would appear on the screen. So I've extended my state machine. So entering the first number, when they press a number, it goes off and deals with that number and comes back to wait for the next number. So you'll loop back around this a few times. In fact, let me show you this happening. Let's actually simulate this state machine. So you can simulate all sorts of different diagrams in EA. You can do activity diagrams, state machines, all sorts of other things. I've gone to the simulate ribbon. Look, there's the new BP Sim facility. Well, it's not new to some people. To me, it's relatively new. I didn't press anything there. There we are. Lots of stuff. We will probably need to open the simulation window, which is this window down here. I've also opened my events window down here. I'll show you why in a minute. And then I can execute or run this state machine, get EA to work around the diagram and make sure it all makes sense. There's various ways of starting a simulation. If I just put the speed back to normal, which is 50%, I could press the play button down here to run the simulation. I could press the play or the start button up here on the ribbon. I could even right click on the diagram and execute it that way. They're all the same thing. They will all execute the simulation. So let's do that. Let's actually run this state machine. It starts here, goes into initializing, goes across to entering first number, and it sits there and waits. It's waiting for the user to press a button or to press a function key or maybe even press the close. So from this state, I could go that way, I could go this way, or I could even go that way. So down in my events window, these are the 3 triggers that are waiting to happen. The triggers are what we typed in. Just type this in as text on the diagram. It created an element behind the scenes for us, and now it's asking me to run the trigger. So let's pretend we're typing in 257. So I would press, I'm just going to double click to run this, to run the number press, or to trigger the number press. I press a 2, it deals with it, puts it on the screen. I then press a 5, it puts that on the screen. Number press again, press a 7, and so on. Then I want to press one of the function buttons and add. So I press add, takes us into the second number. I can then press a few buttons in here to add some numbers to the screen. Eventually, when I'm ready, I can press equals. And that will take me down here where it will calculate and display the answer. And from here, I've got 2 routes. I could do another number. So I'll have 270, I forgot what the numbers were, some kind of answer on the screen. If I press number, it will jump up here and carry on with the first number, which will just go round and round and round. So I'll pretend we're pressing the close button, which will trigger this, take us to the end, and the whole thing stops successfully. I very carefully point out. Right, what are we doing next? I want to put some code on here. I am now referring to my notes in front of me to make sure I type the right stuff in. What I want to do is connect things together. Rather than just running through the state machine and watching the states change, I want to actually see the calculator. This dialog box here, I want it to appear on the screen. Not the diagram, but the actual dialog box, as if the application were running. So I'm going to add a simple bit of code onto this transition line. Choose the transition line. In here, I'm going to put some code. In fact, I've got it on my other screen, so I can copy and paste it. Copy. I'm blatantly going to cheat so that my typing is correct. What's going on here? I'm asking EA to find the dialog called catalog screen and set its show flag to be true. In other words, show the dialog on the screen. That's what I wanted at the beginning. At the end, when I close things down, I want to do the same thing, only, oh, I've gone capitals. Lovely. This is why I copy and paste and don't type live. Save that. There we go. So all I've done is add 2 lines onto this thing, and then I can't help myself, I have to tidy the diagram up. If I save that and then run this again, instead of just running through the states, we will see, hopefully, fingers crossed, it does this line. There we are. The calculator screen has appeared as a working dialog box. I could press buttons on here, nothing's going to happen at all because it's just a blank dummy interface. So in my simulation window, I could go and press all the buttons and so on, and run through the triggers. It's all going to look the same, only this happens to be on the screen now. So I've connected it together slightly, a little bit. If I manually run through, pretend we put some numbers in, I do a function press, takes me down here, press equals, takes me down here, stuff would appear on the screen. I want to put some code in here to actually make stuff appear on the screen to make it look like it's working. Let me close that down. So I've got the state machine opening my interface. What I want to do now is go across to my interface and add some code in here so that I don't have to keep manually triggering things down here. I want the interface to actually trigger number press and trigger function press and trigger the equals. So I want to put some code in behind the scenes on here. If we have a look at the close button, here's one I prepared earlier. You'll see why I've prepared this already. I could easily type that wrongly. What we have to do for each of the things on the screen that we want to be able to interact with, we give them a little tag called onClick, which is a very programmery term. You can put onClick into all sorts of code, and it means when this button is pressed, do something about it. So onClick is what's going in here, and this bit on the right is what it's going to do about it. It's going to do a UI broadcast signal. This you can look up in the EA help. I'll stick a link on the Teams page after this. There's a help page that talks about this. User interface broadcast a signal. So it broadcasts a signal. In brackets, I'm putting the word close. That's the signal I want to broadcast, a close signal. If we go back over to the state machine, look at this line down here, I gave it a close trigger, and behind the scenes, I look in the project browser, there's my close trigger, and there's also a close signal. So in the interface, when you press a button, it will activate that close signal, which will cause this line to go live. We'll do the close trigger, we'll move along the line, and it should finish. I need you all to cross your fingers for me, given how this morning went. Let's try that out. So I've got the appropriate line on the interface. I want to go to the state machine, run it. First thing the state machine does is bring the dialog up on the screen, my interface. It then goes in here. Yes, I want to put code in all these buttons, but right now I want to check that the close works. I'm inside the operating state, so I should be able to press close. I could go and manually activate the trigger down here. I don't want to do that. This is where you cross your fingers for me. I want to press the close button. This is why I needed people to cross their fingers. I'll tell you what we'll do. If I just stop that, don't worry. This is a live demo. What I'll do is I'll jump to the next working one because I know this one works. Do the same thing and I can talk through some stuff. Run it. So pretend that didn't happen. Go and press the close button on here. Fantastic. It worked. I didn't close that. EA closed that. I'll do that again very slowly so you can watch my mouse. Press the start button. The state machine runs. It puts the dialog onto the screen. Here it is. We're inside enter first number. We're also inside operating. If the close signal is detected, which is what's going to happen when I press this, we should shoot along this line and finish. Watch carefully. I press close, and then, as you can see from my webcam, I'm now holding my hands up in the air. I'm not pressing anything. It's gone along here. It all worked. Fabulous. And you didn't see it not working because I'm sure you all looked away for a moment. Good. Right, where have we got to? So we've done that. I need to put code on all of these buttons, basically. So there's the close button. It's got an on click that broadcasts a close signal. There's my equal button. It will broadcast an equal press. I don't know why I haven't got close press. Let's not worry about that. If you press the equals button, that's what will be broadcast, equal press. If I go across to the calculator states, look, there's a transition line with equal press on it. There's a transition line with number press, function press. So there's only 4 functions in here. One of them is close, one of them is equals, and then you've got numbers and functions. Calculator, there's equals, there's close. These are all the numbers and these are all the functions. So the numbers, they, with an on click, they need to broadcast a signal, which is number press. That's the name that we've got in the state machine. These function buttons need to broadcast function press. The eagle eyes amongst you, I'll just move my GoToWebinar window down a bit. The eagle eyes amongst you will have noticed there's a bit more on here. If I look at close, all I do is broadcast close. But with the number ones, I broadcast the signal, and I also send out two other bits of information. I'm sending a parameter from the interface down to the state machine. I'm sending a number parameter. That's a parameter called number, which is set to 5, because this is the 5 button. But look at the 1 button, I send the number parameter with a 1 on it, or a 9 on it. It's the same number press operation, same parameter name, different value. Same with the 4 function buttons. If you press the plus button, it will broadcast a function press signal, which will be caught in the state machine, and will pass in a function parameter that's set to a string, in this case set to plus. This one passes in minus. That sends in times and divide and so on. Let's have a play now. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about just before I go and run this? I'm just checking my list. Show the other buttons. Oh yes, there's a bit of code. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go and run it and then I'll talk about the bit of code. Let me run that and you can see all these things happening. We initialize things, the dialog comes up on the screen and it's sitting here. And now all these buttons have got code behind them. If I press a button on here, 2, it will trigger a transition on here. If I press another button, it will trigger a transition. If I press one of the function buttons, it will take me down here. And I could enter numbers for my second number. Ding dong, there we go. Press the equals button, it triggers this signal, or signals this trigger, I suppose, and then takes you down to here, where we're calculating and displaying an answer. There's no code in here to actually put anything on the screen yet. I'm going to do that in a moment. And it looks like I'm going to be a couple of minutes over. I thought I might be. Sorry, folks. We're all right. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left yet. If I talk fast, we might just get there. So I've got to this stage. You have to imagine there's a nice answer on the screen. I could press another number and take me back up here and start calculating another calculation. Or I could just press close at any point and it will shoot along here and finish. So I want to put some code into the state machine here that will do things with the numbers. I've already put an operation on here in initializing. If I just go in here, where are we? The features window. I've created an init calculator operation. You can put some code inside here. Let me double click on it and show you. You can put some code inside here. So I am internally within the state machine, when it is running, I am going to store some information. I've got a couple of variables. You have to put sim dot in front of everything, so you can almost gloss over that bit. What I've got is a thing called number 1, which I'm initializing to 0, number 2, and an answer, all initialized to 0. So the initializing sets up 3 variables and makes them all 0. I need a function in here as well. Now, what have I called it? Refer to my thing, update screen. I need an operation in here. I'm not going to go and type in the code here. I've got another worked solution, which means I don't have to do any typos and embarrass myself anymore. There's an update screen operation in here. I'll need to add update screen in here. I will need to add an operation in the calculator to actually calculate the answer. There's an operation in here. I can double click on this. I can go into the behavior and I can type in all the code. There's nothing in there yet because I've just added it. So at this point, once again, I will cheat. Jump forward in time. If you all blink for a second, jump forward to the next one, which is my complete working one, he says confidently. Go into the calculator. This all looks exactly the same. These are the operations that I just added. Update screen, calculate answer. If I go into the code on this one, I want to briefly talk through what's happening in here. If you think about how a calculator works, I want to type in fact, I'll write it down the bottom here. I want to type in 257 on the calculator. So you go to the calculator, you press the 2. That's me pressing 2, the bang on the desk there, pressing 2. The 2 needs to go onto the screen. I then need to press a 5, and the 5 needs to go onto the screen, but I can't because there's a 2 there. So I have to make the 2 into a 20 and add the 5 to it to get 25. That's what's going on in here when we're handling a number press. We're told 1 digit. We take the number we've already got and multiply it by 10. We then add on the new number that we've just been given. So assuming there's a 2 in there, I mean, this will be 0 at the beginning. So 0 times 10 is still 0. We add in the 2 that was just pressed and then ask the calculator screen in its number display, that's the white box across the top, set its text equal to what we just calculated. Put a 2 on the screen, basically. Then you press a 5. We come in here. We've got a 2 behind the scenes. 2 times 10 is 20. We take that 20 and add on the 5 we just pressed, we get 25, and we put that on the screen. Then we come in with the 7, do the same thing, and the 257 should appear on the screen. You didn't quite follow the bit of maths there, don't worry about it. That's the magic jiggery pokery that happens in here that makes the screen update. But we can add code in here. At some point we'll press the function button, which will take us down to here. I've got an update screen in here that does exactly the same, but for the second number. We can then press equals and come down here, and we need to calculate the answer. I'll go in and look at the code here. There is, at glance, it looks really complicated, but it's not at all. Break this down. Just look at the first line and the first half of the first line. If the function pressed, that's the signal or the trigger that was passed in when we pressed the function button, and it was given a parameter called function. So if the parameter that was passed in was plus, then we need to do this. We need to set the answer equal to the number 1 plus number 2. If the function was minus, we do number 1 minus number 2 times divide. So we do one of these, and then at the end on the calculator screen, we update the display, set its text equal to the answer. So we do the calculation, stick the answer on the screen, and it all works. Would you like to see that working? And I can hear you all saying, yay, of course we do. Cross your fingers for me, please. After this morning, it's all worked fine all week and last week until this morning. It's just typical, isn't it? So I've initialized things, which means I've set those variables to 0. I could go and look in the local variables window, but I haven't got time. So you can go and view variables and see what they're set to. Let's just type in, what do I do? 2, 5, 7. It runs very slowly. That's because I put it set to 50. Let's turn it up. Let's run at 80% speed. That'll help. So 257, that's the first number. I don't know if you noticed, it was flicking back and forwards between here. That was doing the maths and putting the number on the screen. And we're back up to here. We're waiting for the user to press another number or a function. I'll do a plus. 257 plus, we're down here, running at 80% speed now. So if I do 257 plus 13, so if I press a 1, the 257 has been stored away as number 1. If I press the 3, keep an eye on here as I press the 3. It jumps to that and back in. It just does it quickly because I'm running a lot faster. So I've done 257, I press plus, I've typed in 13. If I press equal, it will trigger this line, take us down here. There'll be code to do the calculation, and the calculation should display the answer, 270. Fabulous. At this point, I could press close, or I could do a number press and go back up and do another calculation. If I do a number press, it resets number 1, 2, and the answer to 0 and sort of starts again, basically. Basically does the initialize. I could point it at the initialize, but I want to store the number. So I'm looping around inside here. Let's just press close and take us back there. So that's the state machine to make the interface appear on the screen and appear to work. We present this to the users, they play around with it, and they decide that they want to do 257 plus 3 to 260, and they now want to go and press plus and add a 10. But down here, plus is one of the functions. I don't have a function down here. I can only press a number or close. So a function isn't going to work. So we've presented the interface to the user. They've had to play with it and realize it's missing stuff. So not only down here can you press a number, I need to also be able to press a function. And the transition that goes up here that uses the, where is it? I haven't put it in the tidy place. Function press. Takes me back up here. So I need to be able to press a function to go back up here. At this point, I realize I've run over. I do apologize. I thought I was going to, but I tried to talk quickly, but I can't do it. I'm a waffler. I can't help myself. So this is the final worked solution. We've taken the user's advice on board. We've updated the requirements, updated the state machine. I've added a bit more code in here to make this work properly. If I run this, the catalog screen comes up. I can do calculator screen. I can do my maths. 257 plus 3 equals 260 plus another 10 is 270 times 5. I have no idea what that will be. 1350. If I minus 1300 from that, and so on. I won't sit and do calculations in front of you all. Close that down. So there we go. In a nutshell, we've done a GUI design. We've shown that to some people. That might be enough. You may be able to stop there. I've then done a state machine diagram to look at the states the interface can be in. And again, that might be enough. But for our users, they just couldn't picture it. So we needed to connect it all together. We had to put magical snippets of code into the state machine, into the GUI, so they talk to each other, so that you can run a state machine, GUI comes up on the screen, users can interact with it. I have no intention of going anywhere near state machine code generation. I knew I wouldn't have time to fit in my main demo, so I'll just mention that you can generate code from a state machine. Not something I've actually done, which is another reason to not include it, but time was the main constraint there. So I feel I should stop talking because I've done enough. So I've forgotten, was it GUI was hosting today? Let me come back across to you and say thank everyone for listening and thank you for hosting. And do you think we've got time to do a question, or should we just end there?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the session, Gareth. So we have a couple of questions and it's been posted to Teams already. And okay. We are still loaded with questions from people. So I can ask quickly one or two simple questions. Is it possible to change color object of GUI?
Interestingly, I don't think you can. I tried, I kind of assumed you could do this, but because of my background, I've done lots of Windows software, and Windows software is all great, and Windows itself usually controls the color of dialog boxes and things. I think with normal buttons, you can't change the color. Let's try. No, you can't. But with things like this, you may be able to change the color. No. So the answer is no.
Okay, okay. And one more simple question. Can we do the same simulation with wireframes from Ahmed?
Wireframe simulation, I don't think was an option. Now, the last time I developed an interface, obviously I've used the Win32, but last time I did a wireframe, I don't think simulation is an option for wireframes. You can do simulation on state machines. Could I connect a state machine to a wireframe? Do you know, thinking about it now, I don't see why not, but I can't directly give you a yes or no. I'd have to go and try that out and find out. In here, this is the code we use to do a dialog, open a certain, oh sorry, Windows is in the way, it's because that's happening. There we are. We're asking EA to open a certain dialog, that's the name of it. We're getting it to show it. If you can do that with wireframes, then you should be able to simulate a wireframe if you had a state machine for it. I haven't tried that, so I can't confidently say yes. I suspect not, but maybe. I'll investigate and reply on the Teams window later on.
Okay, okay. So all we are receiving appreciations from the participants saying that this is one of the best presentation. So they really feel the value of your efforts. Yeah, thank you you so much for your time.
They were saying that. Thank you.
And the people wanted to contact you. They were asking about your email address. They wanted to know more about the sample project which you are using. So we will be redirecting all participants from here to Teams. So please connect to them over Teams, and you can see all these questions are started being posted in Spark Systems UK channel.
Okay. Well, we've got Gillian Aidens as well to help out, so she won't like it. I've name dropped her now, she has to come and do stuff. We'll both pop into Teams and see if we can tackle those questions this afternoon and tomorrow, perhaps.
Okay, people who are not able to connect to Teams, we will help you out. Please reach us at registrations@eaglobalsummit.com. If you want to add any email address, any other email address rather than the registered email address. So we, yeah, I can understand many people having security limitations with the Teams sign up. So if you were able to create a simple Microsoft personal account, it's very easy to for us to add to Teams channel for people to participate in conversations with speakers. So please write us to registrations@eaglobalsummit.com. We will drop this email address at the chat box. Please reach us at if you have any limitations in reaching in accessing Teams channel. Anyhow, we have to wind down the session here. Thank you so much, Gareth. Thanks for your time and efforts. We can see that the efforts you've been spent with this presentation. Thank you wholeheartedly. And all questions have been posted over there. Please respond to the participants and take forward the conversations from there. Thank you. Thanks all participants once again for joining the great session. The video of this session and the entire presentation will be made available after this conference. It will be uploaded in YouTube channels, and you will be notified where it will be available. So who are able to join Teams channel, continue the conversation with Gareth and Gillian and other EA experts too. Thank you, Gareth. Thank you all.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you all for listening. And we'll see you all in Teams.
See you all. See you all. Bye.
Thanks, and bye now.